What up, reader fam? Today I'm bringing you an Unhaul video. We unhaulin' books. We unhaulin' books. Yeah! I think this might actually end up being the last Unhaul video that I do. Not that I'm gonna stop unhauling books in the future. I just don't feel the need to make these kinds of videos in the future moving forward, but I know that a lot of you guys like these videos, so I'm gonna give you this one last Unhaul video to enjoy on my channel before I start changing up my content next year. A lot of the books I'm about to show you, I'll be honest, I didn't finish them, but for a lot of these books, I started them and I just couldn't finish them. I really only want to focus my time on reading books that I know I'm going to enjoy for the most part. Otherwise, I feel like I'm just wasting my time reading books that I'm not enjoying. Like, why do we do that to ourselves? I promise, it ain't worth it, my dudes. I'm planning on either donating these books to my local library or to the library of the school that I attended growing up. So without further ado, let me share with you some books that I am planning to get rid of. I'm going shoo-shoo to some books. First up here, I have this book called The Goblin Puzzle. I got 3 chapters into this book and decided that it just wasn't doing it for me. The thing with this is that I love middle grade books. Like, I'm usually down to read books from that age group. I have nothing against that. I never get when people are like, ugh, I can't read that, that's middle grade. I just don't understand that mindset of feeling like you're too old to enjoy middle grade books. Like, middle grade books are where it's at. Some of the most magical books come from this age group. Harry Potter, the Spiderwick Chronicles, Percy freaking Jackson. You can't tell me that middle grade books don't got it going on, because they do. This one initially really intrigued me, but as I started reading it, I just couldn't get into it. Like, something about it was just kind of off. While I was trying to read it, I just wanted to be reading other things, which is never, ever, ever a good thing for a book. Like, if you spend your time reading a book and you're like, dang, I wish I was reading that book over there, that's not a good sign. You're probably not enjoying the book that you're reading, and you should be reading that book that you want to read. I'm actually pretty sad that this one didn't suck me in, because it's got a pretty fun concept. We follow a slave, a goblin, a peasant girl, and a princess who all get caught up in trying to overtake a kingdom. And in doing so, they face off with monsters and magicians. And also throughout the book, there are all these puzzles tucked away throughout the story, and you're trying to figure it out alongside the characters. I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but I'm really sad that this one and I just didn't work out together. We just didn't hit it off. But hopefully somebody else out there in the world will come in contact with this book and they'll love it. That's the good thing about books. One person might hate it and another person might love it. So go out into the world, book, and make another reader happy. The next one I have here is I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. I tried to read this book back in November and it just didn't happen. It didn't work out. I tried reading it and I just couldn't get into it. I wanted to love it, but it just didn't happen. I wanted this to be an insta-love situation where I opened the book, read the first sentence, and fell in love. But that didn't happen. This story is about Julia, whose sister passed away, and after she kind of starts digging in deeper into how her sister passed away, it leads her to unraveling all these family secrets. I just could not get into this one. I kept pushing and pushing and tried to find a breakthrough. You know how sometimes a book can really take its time to kind of fully pull you in? That's what I was expecting to happen to this one. I got pretty deep into it, but I just never got that tug. I kept waiting for that tug. I wanted to fall into this book, but I ended up falling out instead. I do want to point out the fact that I did really enjoy reading about the Mexican culture in this book. I honestly haven't read very many books where Mexican culture was present, and I would like to read more, so if you guys have any recommendations for me, hit me up in the comments. That part of the book was really excellent. I mean, I personally can't comment on the rep because I'm white as can be, so I could be very wrong about the rep, but I'll try to find some Own Voices reviews and place them in the description down below. I think something that I really didn't connect with in this book was just the writing style. It has a very straightforward writing style, and I just couldn't connect to it. And by straightforward, I mean the writing felt very simple, like just in how it explained everything, which can be both a good thing and a bad thing. Like, it can be good in the fact that it makes it more accessible for people, but bad for people who want to be challenged by what they're reading. Also, the main character kind of drove me bonkers. I know it's impossible to always be reading about characters that you love, and generally, I like characters where you don't like them. Like, I usually tend to like the unlikable characters, but this character is just one that I had a hard time getting along with. So those are just some reasons as to why I gotta say bye to this book. Next up here, I have another middle grade story, and that is This Is Not a Werewolf Story. My biggest complaint with this book is that it felt like it was trying to be something that it's not. It felt like it was using all these elements from these other popular middle grade stories and trying to fit in instead of it being its own story, which this happens all the time. This isn't the first time I've seen a book try to do this. Like, I see it all the time being done in in YA, and it's done all the time in adult books too. Heck, I'm sure this is even done in picture books too. But I mean, right off the bat when I started this book, it just reminded me of Percy Jackson, and that's because each chapter in this book has a weird chapter title like in Percy Jackson. And unfortunately with me, that was like the initial turnoff with this book. I was like, oh, okay. Not that Uncle Rick invented weird chapter titles, but that was just the first sign of many that this book was trying to be something that it wasn't. So I decided that instead of reading this book and spending my whole time reading it, comparing it to other books, that I would just get rid of it. It's probably just for the best. The next one is one that might disappoint quite a few of you, and I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm sorry. I tried, my dudes, and that is The Coldest Girl in Coldtown by Holly Black. I really tried to like this book, guys. I kept pushing myself to read it to get farther into it, but that just made me like it even less. I do have something positive to say about this book though, and that's the fact that it was a very unique take on vampires. When it comes to the concept alone, like, I applaud Holly Black. She didn't stick to the status quo, that's for sure. But just in general, the writing style was just so dry in my opinion. It's like the vampire scoured throughout the story and sucked the life out of the words. And the characters, while I do feel like they had a lot of depth to them, I just wasn't super interested in learning more about them and seeing their story unfold. Hence why I'm getting rid of this book. I have since read another book by Holly Black though, and I loved it. It was The Darkest Part of the Forest. Plus I read the Spiderwick Chronicles books growing up, and I loved those books so much. So I will continue to read Holly Black's books in the future because I know that she's a good writer, and I think she's really talented, but this book just wasn't for me. Next up here I have another pretty popular book, so this one might disappoint a few of you, and that is Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. If you watched one of my reading vlogs from quite a while ago, then you know that I really struggled with this book. And really the big reason as to why I'm getting rid of this book just comes down to the fact that I wasn't enjoying it. It just didn't click with me. This is an adult book that follows the story of this boy who is trying to solve this mystery that his father, who passed away in the World Trade Center on 9/11, left behind for him. I feel like maybe I should have given this book more time to grow on me because the narration style itself was really hard for me to sink into. It kind of has this very stream of conscious feel to it. Something that I did like about this book was the overall format of it. It has images, it has circled words, it has articles and whatnot, and I always enjoy when elements like that are brought in to kind of spice up a book. Ultimately though, this was a no-go for me, so it's gotta go. Finally, the last two books I'm just gonna talk about together because I kind of have similar reasons as to why I'm getting rid of them. One is Lady Renegades, which is the third book in the Rebel Belle trilogy, and the other book is Goliath, which is the third and final book in the Leviathan trilogy. These are two finales that I put off for far too long. Lady Renegades I avoided because I fell out of love with the Rebel Belle trilogy. I loved the first book, then I read the second book and didn't like it at all, which in turn put me off from wanting to finish the trilogy. I honestly feel like this trilogy would have benefited from just being a duology, or even just a standalone. I kept going back and forth deciding if I should or shouldn't finish this trilogy, which as you can see today, I finally decided that I wasn't going to finish it. And the main reason is that I kept being like, yeah, I'll finish it one day, but that usually means that I'm just never gonna get around to it. I'd rather focus my time and energy on books that I know for sure I'll want to read. And as for Goliath, honestly, I just waited way too long to read this book. It's been like 4 or 5 years since I've read the second book, and I should have picked it up right away after finishing the second book, but I didn't. I waited and waited and put it off and put it off. And honestly, I've forgotten way too many details about the first and second book that if I were to read this book, I would probably be confused the whole way through, and I probably just wouldn't end up enjoying it. I'm sure you're probably thinking, why not try before just assuming that? I did try, and I was so confused. It was like stepping into a world that I've never read about before, which is false because I read the first and second books. I feel like I used to be the kind of person where I was like, if I'm gonna start a series, I'm going to be dedicated to that series. Even if I'm not feeling it, I will read it. But I've been working on getting myself out of that mindset, and this is kind of a start for that. Because when you think about it, it's really not that big of a deal. Onward, I say, to the books I'll actually end up enjoy reading. So those are some books that I am hoping to get rid of here pretty soon. You guys should let me know down below in the comments if you have read any of these books and if you think I'm making a mistake, or if you think I'm not making a mistake. I'm quite curious to hear all your thoughts. Or just let me know down below in the comments a book that you've gotten rid of recently. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. I post videos frequently on this channel, so if you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe, or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thanks for watching guys, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye, chew. Bleh. I can't spit out my words. Maybe if I do some warm-ups, it'll help me out. A-E-I-O-U. This isn't spit it out.